Hello, Mr. Snow here. Welcome. We're going to be doing a basic front-end development project for freeCodeCamp today. It's going to be a tutorial. It's actually going to be the first tutorial, the first major project that you get into with freeCodeCamp. Now, we're going to be building a tribute page, and we're going to be using HTML and a little bit of CSS. It's going to be pretty basic. It's going to be a one-page application. It's going to have an image, going to have some text, it's going to have some links on it, and we're going to be utilizing Bootstrap as well. So I'll go over that. So let's just jump right in and take a look at this. So I'm going to share my screen to you all. And so you can see here is freeCodeCamp, and here's the Build a Tribute Page challenge. And you could say it has some objectives on there. It wants us to use codepen.io, which is a little application that we can use, a web application that we can use to practice our CSS, HTML, JavaScript. We can do all kinds of neat stuff with CodePen, so you can really dive in and get into that later on. You can click here, and it gives you an example of what they want. So here's an example of what we're trying to build, a simple tribute page. Okay, this one has some large text as a heading, a subheading, a picture, and then some text elements. This one has a timeline on it. All right. So let's just see here. We have a user story here. I can view a tribute page with an image and text, and I can click a link that will take me to an external website with further information on that topic. So how do we even get started? Well, first we have to pick a topic that we want, and we have to get into CodePen and take a look at this stuff. So here is CodePen. I just opened up a new CodePen here, and this is a new pen, it's called. So it's just like a little single page doodle we have here. So we can input HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then we can see what the output is in our nice little single page application. And then we can export this as well. I'm going to get rid of the JavaScript panel because we do not need that for what we're doing. I'm going to keep the CSS visible because we're going to be utilizing that. And you can see this is our preview down below. If I click here and I just mash buttons on my keyboard, you can see that they pop up down here because it is just text. There's no tags, anything like that there. So there's our HTML. The next thing I want you to take a look at is into settings. We have HTML settings, CSS, JavaScript, behaviors. So do you want it to auto-save and auto-update? Okay, that'll be more important later on when we start messing with JavaScript. All right, and CSS. So what I want to do is go down here into CSS, and I want to enable Bootstrap. So we don't have to do this in a script tag or anything here because we don't need to do any script tags with this pen. All we have to worry about is just the code itself. So if I want to use something like Bootstrap, I can go over here and go to Bootstrap 3. That's what we're going to be using for this, Bootstrap 3, and that's going to give us the latest stable version of Bootstrap 3. So I want to make sure I have Bootstrap 3, and that's all we need. I just went to Quick Add. That's it. So Quick Add's right there. And save and close. I went to Bootstrap 3 because we're going to be using some of that stuff, and that's what we learned in our freeCodeCamp stuff, right? So if you open up your map, you remember you have your front end, and you have your HTML and CSS, responsive design with Bootstrap, jQuery, and then now we're into the basic front end development projects. So the responsive design with Bootstrap is pretty cool. So I also have opened the documentation for Bootstrap 3. And as you can see, there's all of these options here. Some of the cooler things that we can do, notice we still have H1 through H6. It looks like stuff that we can use in terms of secondary text. So we can take a look at this. So those are our headings in terms of typography, and those shows us some examples. Here we have p tags, what a p tag looks like. We can adjust the font size and the line height and apply it to the entire body or directly to the p tags themselves, which is kind of cool. And you can also do a whole bunch of stuff. So basically, when you get started using any kind of additional code, so again, Bootstrap is just a chunk of code that somebody else wrote, not an English teacher. It's just a bunch of code that someone else wrote. So what we're doing is we're linking to that outside code, and we're going to be using its keywords to manipulate our project. And this is how we use the keywords, and this is all the documentation. We're going to do the same thing when we get into JavaScript and jQuery later. But here it's set up pretty nicely. I know that I want to use certain things here. So like headings. Like I'm going to use some H tags. So I'm going to use H1 through H6 maybe. I'm not sure which ones I'll use. I'll figure it out as I go. The next thing that you want to take a look at is some of these alignment classes here. So since I already enabled Bootstrap in my project, I can put something like in my P class and say P class text left. And what that's going to do is it's going to align the text left. All right, just like it is up here. What else can I do? I can do text lowercase, uppercase, capitalized. All right. So all kinds of things that you can do as well. So just neat tricks and tips that you can do. And probably the most useful thing is going to be the grid system, which there's a lot of reading things here that you can know about. But essentially, all you have to know is that we can break things up into rows. And then each row we can break up into separate columns. And those columns come with fixed heights. And you can see here, it's broken up into 12 different partitions. And these are just a visual example of how that works. We're going to be using that stuff much later on. But for right now, all I really need is I just need rows, right? So I'm going to actually use a row, and then I'm going to show you an alternate way to do it as well. So we're going to be using Bootstrap. We're going to be controlling some of the elements in Bootstrap, some of the headings in Bootstrap, which we're going to be found in typography, right? And some of our H tags we're going to control. I'm going to be aligning text, right? Aligning the text here using some of these classes as well. And then I'm also going to be playing with the class row is what I'm going to be using, okay? So let's take a look at this and jump right in finally into our blank canvas. So our blank canvas here, we need a topic about something. So I am going to just type in zombies, and then I'm just going to use Wikipedia because it is easy. For zombie, and here we go. And we have some images we can access under zombie. All right, so there we go. And you can kind of pick what images you like to use. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to be stealing some of this text. And yes, I'm going to be stealing it. It's okay for us right now. It's just to prove that we can use it. It's not like you'll be publishing this and claiming any of your work. If you do, make sure you know how to go ahead and annotate all of this stuff so that way you can, show all of your sources as well. But we're just going to start off with zombies. Yeah, so here's going to be our reference material. And I know I'm going to need some sort of heading and some subtext for zombies. So what is that really going to look like? So let's take a look back to our code pen here. And the first thing I want you to take a look at in the code pen is nothing is blank. So anything we put in here is going to be considered the body, or what's going to go inside of the body. And so if I break up my HTML, we break it up into, just kind of like Bootstrap had rows that we can actually manipulate that are responsive. HTML, what we do is we break everything up into a div. So we type div that opens a div or a division or a section, all right, or a break in our organization of everything. And then we're going to close it with that slash. So there's an opening and a closing div. And I'm going to be sticking a bunch of stuff in this div. All right. And what I want to be doing with this is I actually want to have a heading, a subhead, and a picture all be center aligned. And then I'm going to put paragraphs of text in that are right aligned. So you can see how like zombie here is left aligned. I want this stuff in the center and a subheading in the center. So how do I go ahead and do this? I'm going to close this one so I stop clicking on that one by accident. So what I can do is, if you remember Bootstrap, when we get into typography and alignment, I can just say whatever class I have. Well, I want just the entire div, not just the P class, but I want this to be text center, and that's going to center my text. So div and then class equals, and we can use single quotes. And notice when I type a quote, another one opens, and I want text center. Now this is a Bootstrap class, so it's not text center. And we can use single quotes or double quotes for that. It doesn't matter right now. It's going to matter for something I'm going to do a little bit later on, but not for right now. So I want everything to be inside of this div that I want to be in the center. So what do I want? Well, I want to have here some big words. So I'm just going to be using an H1 element. I'm going to control this later because it's not going to quite be big enough. Remember, if I open something, I want to make sure that I close it, which is the same thing but with a slash in front of it, or a forward slash, more correct. And I'm just going to write zombies, exclamation point. And then underneath that, let's say I want, call it something small. So maybe we'll go with like an H5. Let's give that a shot. All right, and then we'll close that H5. And I will put in here, Snow loves him some zombies. Oh, make that lowercase. There we go. So now I have a title and a subtitle in there. And we can actually adjust a space in here. So if I want something that else I could show you is like a BR, gives me a break in here, so I can add that in if I want as well. So you can kind of see how that gives us a space, or you can keep it close. It's up to you. And that break that's going to go in there, so notice that that break is now under the size of that H1. And there's better ways to control that, but I'm just going to leave it as is for right now. I don't need a break. But we can do that. You can also add things like a horizontal rule. All right, so you can add something like an HR in there. All right, you can kind of see that we can actually do it's not showing up. We can set up those, and we can show you how to do some of that stuff later on. And then if you want to learn more about that kind of stuff and messing with HTML, like there's HR for horizontal rule, there's a whole bunch of other stuff you can look up. We'll get into some of that in our later projects as we get set up. So we have an H1, we have an H5, and then we have an image that I want to go in here as well. So before I bounce outside of the center div, I'm going to have another thing here that I'm going to put a picture in. All right, and I want to put a picture in here, but I want it to be a row. All right, so I'm just going to use the Bootstrap class row. So div class equals row. And that's going to give me a responsive row. What that means is it's going to change based on whatever the content is. And that's going to be less than optimal for the reason I'm going to show you at the end of this. But just so you know, I'm going to use div class row. And again, that class row is Bootstrap class, just so you know. And then I need to put an element in here. Well, what I want to do is I want to put a picture in here. And I want that picture, when you click on it, to go somewhere. So let's say I want to select that picture. All right, what I'll do is I'll open it up in a new tab. So I have that picture. And I want to pick another picture that should go with it. Maybe this one. I'll open that up in a new tab just to make sure I have the actual pictures themselves. And good. What I wanted to show you is I wanted them to be different sizes, actually. We can control that later on, but I just wanted to show you what this is going to look like. So now I have the link to the image itself that I want to use. All right. So I can actually copy that link to that picture that I want. Just make sure you click on those pictures to get the full link, to make sure it gets through your school or work web filter. Make sure that they actually work. And the way I'm going to set this up is I'm going to have an image tag. Okay, so I'm going to use an image tag. IMG for image tag. And then I'm going to use source equals. And then here is where you're going to put in link. So that is the original source image of the object itself. So that works. So there's the source. Now, there's something else I can add to this. So there is an image. Now I have, an image. Okay. Looks pretty good, right? So I have an image here. But what if I want that image to change? So I can actually add more stuff inside of this image tag. So what else can I add on this image tag? Well, just to make it a little clearer, I'm going to give myself a carriage return here. And let's just say that we're going to use on mouse out first. And the reason I'm going to do on mouse out first is so I can just don't have to recopy and paste it twice. So when you mouse over something, I want the picture to change. But when your mouse leaves it, I want it to revert back to the original. Okay, so I want to kind of jump and change on me. So I'm just going to use on mouse out. And now this is actually going to substitute in something. All right, so it actually is going to run a function. So it's going to change something. And so what this is going to do is it's going to equal, I'm going to use double quotes here, and you have to insert what you want inside the double quote. So what I want to change on mouse out is I want this source right here to change back to this. So I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to copy this entire thing. All right. So the source all the way down to here. So I want this whole thing to change. Now notice that I had single quotes here. All right. So you could use escape quotes if you want, but I'm going to make sure that I use double quotes here so I can literally just copy and paste it in. Okay. Looks pretty good. Hey, then jump. Mouse out. There it goes. All right. And now I can not be done if I want. I can keep going with this and give myself another space, another carriage return here. And then I can say something like on mouse over. And so on mouse over, and I'm going to set that equal to. Okay. And the same thing, I want to change the source on mouse over. Use double quotes first. And then just like I used, I want to change the source equals, and now it's going to be single quotes now. What's going to go inside those single quotes? The second picture. Make sure you're in the right spot. Okay. So now we have a mouse over and a mouse out on my image itself. All right, so I have a mouse over and a mouse out. So now, let's see here. Let me tidy my HTML. So here's an image. All right, so that works. And then we have the source. But this image, I want to click on this image and do something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set all of this inside of an anchor tag. All right, and I'm going to set this inside of an anchor tag. So what does that mean? I'm going to go, and then change trip, and then this is going to be where I want this thing to go, and I want this to go to the Wikipedia zombie page. So I'm going to go ahead and paste that in. All right, and remember, because we're in CodePen, it even tells you in user stories you have to use target equals blank to bounce out of this. So I didn't even close that anchor tag yet, but I'm going to go ahead and do target equals blank. Okay. So now I have target equal blank. Now when I click on it, it should take me somewhere. All right, so I have target equals blank. And then after that, I have my opening image tag. And then I have my image source. All right, on mouse over and on mouse out. All right. So let's take a look at this here. Save and close. Sorry about that. And we have our anchor tag started. And then once this is all done, and I have all of this, now I can close my anchor tag. Now when I click on this, I go over to zombie. All right, good to go. And why are we not changing here? So I have a div class row. So that's working. But my on mouse out and my on mouse over are not working. So on mouse out, I have it set to the original one, on mouse over. So let's look at this. Did I have a typo? I might have a typo. On mouse over equals src equals single quote. And I need a single quote. There it goes. I was missing a single quote. There we go. So as you can see, this is the process we use. And there's something that I want you to notice right away. All right, see how this is automatically reacting and changing, all right, based on these things here. I don't want this to happen. I don't want stuff to jump around like this. So I want this to be isolated from everything else, okay? So how do I go ahead and do that? Well, since this jumps around, it's going to get worse as I add in more text. So if I click on a div, so this is the text center div, all right? So now I want to add in some paragraph stuff. So I'm going to come out of this. I'm going to put in a new, all right? And a class I'm going to put in here is text left, all right? And that's going to justify, it's going to send my text over to the left. So I open a div, close a div, and I'm going to paste in a bunch of the first, and maybe I'll do, yeah, here we go. I will copy this for a few paragraphs, and I'll paste that as plain text inside. Okay. And now I have a single page app that has text. It comes as a big block and it jumps around. It's quite annoying that it jumps around. And notice that none of my spacing is here. So I hit carriage returns here, but nothing else happened. Well, the reason is I need to put all of this stuff inside of a paragraph. So I need to have open a p tag here, and then I have to close p tag. But then I want to open a new p tag. I'm just going to copy this and paste it in. So I open, closed, a new one, open, close the new one, open, close that p tag, open this next p tag, close that p tag. Now that they're all opened and closed, now I have spaces between them. Okay, so that's good. Now notice that I don't have a container or anything for my text. I just have a basic div class of text left. And I still have this thing jumping around, and it's, right? It's kind of annoying, right? So what do I want to do? Well, what can we do about this? Well, that's going to be the basics for our HTML, except I really don't want to put this in a row, all right, because that's not really going to work for me, especially with what I'm doing. I'm going to change this div, and I'm actually going to give it an ID. So I'm going to call it ID equals pick, and that's going to be a div with this. All right, and since I don't want this to really jump around, so I have div with an ID of picture. And since I have Bootstrap enabled, even though it doesn't really have to be in a row to jump around, when I have it in a row, I can actually change where this is at. But it's still jumping because I'm still using Bootstrap. So if you're not using Bootstrap, you don't have it enabled, it'll when you do a mouse over, a lot of times the picture will just go right over the text. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to control this pick class here. So how do I do that? How do I select it? Well, I'm going to select my ID by using a hash. So I'm going to say hash pick, and I'm going to open this up with curly braces. And this hash pick, I'm going to say has a height of, I don't know, let's see what 400 pixels looks like. Oh, still not big enough, huh? So you can see it now, it's kind of jumping over there. So what happens if I adjust that size to 600? 500. There you go. So now you have room for this thing to bounce around. See that? All right, that works pretty good. All right, but it's still not justified in the center of there, and these pictures are just way too different in size. All right. So if you want to make a transformation with an image, what you want to do is have something that's either the same size or close to the same size to avoid this. But I figured I would show this to you anyway, just to show you how you can make it responsive, or you can just have a separate named div and control the height of that. And it just works as a little wrapper for that image itself. All right. And that way we're good to go. All right. There. We have something. It's nice and dramatic so you can see it. I wanted to make sure they were pretty different so you can actually see that. What else do I want to change? Well, I want to adjust the body. The body is everything that's inside of here. So how do I adjust things that are in the body? Well, let's go to, let's change the font family. For the font family, I can actually set what the font is and then put them in descending order of what I want. So let's see if I use something like, I know this works because this is what I was playing with before. Georgia Times, and then just a generic serif font. If it doesn't have any of those, the browser can't find any of those. All right, you can see that now I have a different looking text. And these are basically in descending order what we want to use. So there, what happens when we get rid of that Georgia, it just changes the size. So if you want to go with something like Times or Times New Roman or something like that, or just a generic serif font. So I'm just using generic fonts now. I'm going to change my background color, background dash color. All right, and I'm going to change that to black. And notice I have a background color of black. And let's change the color, oopsies, in that sentence. And change color, and color refers to the text color to red. So now I have a red page. All right. Now we're looking like we're living in 1995 down here with the internet, right? All right, except it's a little bit more responsive. And that's kind of what I wanted to show you. You can kind of change these things. And what else can I control here? Well, I'm going to mess around with the H1. And I'm going to change the H1 font size if I can. And I can set this to many different things. And again, you can check out how to change font size. You can do it in Bootstrap. You can go in CSS. If you Google it, just go to like the MDN. Has really good resources for that. I use that later on. But for now, we're just trying to control small things, and then you can go off on your own and play with it. What if I want this to be, I don't know, 90 pixels? All right. So now I have zombies nice and big, 90 pixels. So Mr. Snow loves zombies. And we have this picture that as you scroll down, it gets bigger on you. All right. You're like, why does it have such a big space? Whatever. So you can see we've gone through and we've done some HTML, some basic CSS. We've controlled the body element, all right? We've controlled the H1 element, which are standard elements in your HTML, and I've made a custom ID and then controlled that custom ID with CSS as well. We've utilized Bootstrap, okay, for things like text center, text left, all right? We've done multiple pictures. I showed you how to do on mouse over, on mouse out, how to do an anchor tag for an image, and let's see, a tribute page with an image, and can click a link that can take me to an external website. So there's a link, which is the image itself. Let's say that at the bottom here, if you just wanted to make sure you have a separate link, okay? If you want to have a separate link, how do you do that? And in case you forgot, I'll add this in at the end. Just add an anchor tag, all right? And you can set this to equals, and then wherever you want to go. All right. And then again, make sure you set target equal to blank. Equal to blank. And then I'll say click here for zombies. All right. And then I just want to make sure that since I started that, I'm going to end my anchor tag. And what is that going to look like? Ah, jumps out at me. And then click here for more zombies at the bottom. And you can click that and it'll take you to the Wikipedia page. All right. And you can also control that anchor tag over here. You can add more stuff to it, change how it's aligned, all of that. Alrighty. So again, hopefully that was helpful and you can get yourself a quick and dirty tribute page done. And yours better look better than this one because again, we just threw this one together to show you some different examples here. So again, I hope you come back and check out more of our tutorials here. And if you're stuck in my class, you don't have an option. Alrighty. Thanks a lot. I'll see you all next time.